planning and designing the program and proactively monitoring its progress, resolving issues, and initiating appropriate corrective actions is all done by a program manager. An armed forces officer is invariably doing this role throughout the service. To understand the same role better, today we have Squadron Leader Vinith Kumar, retired, on this show of The Ladder. I, Shaurya, on behalf of The Ladder podcast channel, welcome you all to this episode in the series of interviews. Let us have a look at glimpse of our purpose and motto of this podcast channel.
Confusion is inevitable state of mind in all stages of life, be it the education, selection of life partner, or the job. More the options, more is the confusion. Despite being the exceptional military leaders, when it comes to transitioning from boots to suits, we again encounter the same confusion. Which job profile to select, what certification needs to be done, and where do we start are all questions that haunt the mind. We at The Ladder bridge this gap of unknown queries by interviewing veterans who are already well settled after their transition. We bring you their valuable experience and share guidance so that you all are benefited. Following the motto of once a soldier, always a soldier, we're here to fill that gap of mentoring and guidance so that bonhomie of armed forces fraternity remains intact.
Well, Squadron Leader Vinith is a mechanical engineer from Visvesvaraya Technical University, and he has done his MTech in manufacturing management from prestigious BITS Pilani in the year 2017. He has also completed executive business management course from IIM Indore in the year 2022. Presently, he is working as program manager in Tata Advanced Systems Limited. I welcome Squadron Leader Vinith to the podcast channel. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. Very good evening, Shaurya. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and great to have you and interact with you.
Sir, to begin with the interview, sir, please brief up about your 10 years of experience as engineering officer in Air Force.
Okay, great. Thank you. This will also light up my mood because I will get to run through the last 10 years which I served with the Air Force. So I started out in the year 2012 from the AFCAT entry into the Air Force, into the mechanical engineering branch of the Air Force, aeronautical engineering. And post 6 months of training in the Air Force Academy, military training, and then a year and a half of training with the Air Force Technical College on specific systems. I was then trained on an aircraft called Dornier 228, which is a turboprop aircraft from Germany, which is basically the powerhouse for our logistic air support across various missions in the northeastern sector of our country and in the subsectors. So I initially, post my training on system, I was posted to Guwahati, which is a logistic airbase supporting all ALGs in the northeastern sector. And then post that, I was deployed into a supply chain role wherein we were responsible for shipment of armament to various war-waging units of the country. And I did that for about 4 years. And then I went back to my aircraft system, this time again to my hometown. I was lucky enough, I'm not sure if many of military brats get that opportunity, but then I came back to Bangalore where my aircraft was operating, and I was responsible for again maintenance, repair, and overall of Dornier 228 aircrafts on the flight line, which was predominantly used for training of stage 2 pilots of the Indian Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard. And at the end of the year, I culminated and then took over this journey from gracefully retired, I would say, and then took on to the next step of career progression. So that's my journey.
Great, sir. Sir, any work experience you have after your graduation?
I graduated in the year 2011 June, and then in the month of January 2012, the course was starting 52 SSE. So for about 6 months, yes, I did work with Tata Consultancy Service because that was something that came from my campus placement. I was basically trained on business analytics and business intelligence platform in the year 2011, because that was the bloom at that point of time. But then I had to quit, and that 6 months was just just a know-how process. That's it. Nothing worthwhile putting it on paper. So my major experiences, I would say, will come from the Air Force itself.
Sir, having MTech graduation, how come did you decide to join the Air Force, sir?
Oh, okay. To clarify that, I had a BTech graduation when I started out in mechanical engineering, and the Air Force has specific entry for mechanical engineers. But the MTech was part of a work integration learning program wherein we get to study after I joined the Air Force. So while there are a few candidates who do take the opportunity after an MTech, and it does not stop in any way, because with an MTech degree, you're all the more qualified to handle engineering problems in the Air Force, and it will only help to their pinnacle of how they take forward engineering development and scope. So in terms, if you ask me in terms of educational background, whether it is a BE or a MTech, it is not much of a barrier to enter the Air Force. So if you have a double degree, then it's only for your advantage.
Okay, sir. And how come you decided to leave the Air Force and join the corporate, sir? What was that key decision which helped you to switch?
Okay, so firstly, in fact, well, I'm not sure. I think it's predominantly majority of the cases we get to serve for 10 years initially, and then there's an extension for 4 years. So these two milestones are pretty much a strong point wherein it will catapult or decide how your career progresses for the next 20 years or so. So when I was looking at when I was reaching 9 years of service, so at that point of time, I honestly believed that I had rappelled through varied levels of responsibilities and maintenance, repair, overall projects, operations, supply chain, logistics, human resource, and all types of leaderships, generally like how a military engineer would work through. And I honestly wanted to engage that process into a more domain-specific role. In my case, it is aviation, and wanted to get into the know-hows and know-whys of technology. So hence, I took this, cultured decision of taking the way forward and putting down my boots and then putting on the suits to take forward the journey.
Okay, great, sir. So why did you choose to join the corporate, sir, instead of continuing in any other government oblique PSU, specifically in aviation industry?
Correct. While there was a lot of options in the government itself, you look at majority of the DRDO labs, they do have state-of-the-art technology and cutting-edge technology that offer great roles to develop as an individual in the field of aviation. One thing that fascinated me was being in the Air Force. It also gives you a sense of how the actual government works, right? So if you want to go and understand, and if you want to move towards more of a strategic development, then you need to also understand how the other part of the globe works. So while you can have a conceptual knowledge of how the corporate level and the structures work, it is best to actually get in good sync and get in nail with them. And it's probably then you will get to understand the ground reality. So hence, having a good experience with how the government works and understanding that for 10 years, I honestly felt that it is time to get to know the other side of the grass and get that exposure into my kitty for future roles. So that's why it was, I decided at that point of time to take it on to a corporate level.
And how important is this PMP certification, sir, for any officer transitioning into the corporate?
Okay, see, when I say so if you want to speak specifically about PMP, see, PMP is a certification which is domain specific. One needs to understand that very clearly. It is a certification which is globally recognized and standardized for anyone who's who's going into a project management role or a program management role. So if that is your intention, what we learned in the Air Force or in the Army or the Navy, while will definitely add values and experiences to what you will use, it is necessary for an individual officer or any military engineer who's coming out to understand the know-hows of how corporate level work. And PMP is one such certification which clearly specifies and standardizes the processes of project management in the corporate world or any other sector. And having going through that certificate will only take you a step forward. But to be honest, it's not a mandatory certification. I have a few of my colleagues who've been absorbed into great roles while they're not being PMP certified. So it is a step ahead. It is a feather in the cap, which speaks about your learning, about your knowledge levels, but definitely not mandatory.
Okay, sir. And did you take any assistance of the consultancies for the job search or resume building, sir?
See this when you see when to put that straightforward, a resume is something that is, at least in my view, is something that speaks about yourself. So while we are a little novice on the fact that of building a resume or how, because that is the face of what you are, right? If you're putting it for candidates, or if that does not get in, or it does not impress the hiring manager, you're not getting the chance for an interview, and you're slacking down your selection probability. So yes, I do agree. CV is a important aspect, and it needs to be designed to the edge, and it should go into the fish like into the water. But then it's also something that you need to master. You need to sit down, spend some time with it, and write down clearly what you need to sell yourself with. Because even if you go into someone who's going to consult for you or who's going to write it for you, he or she is only going to build it in a proper structure that is presentable. But the content is going to come from within. It's going to come from your experiences. So as military, we're coming from a fraternity where we build various amounts of cases. We've explained to people about case studies. So a resume is also something like that, which can definitely be built by an individual. I built it myself, so I didn't go and pick any of these consultancies. And then I got it right. Then I got it reviewed by my colleagues. We did some improvements, and then finally we got the structure right. So that was my way of taking the resume.
And how important is this salary negotiation in the first interview, sir?
To be honest, you'll once you because when you're giving your first interview, it's majoritarily, or I would say about 90 to 95% wouldn't have given an interview, at least for a job in the last 9 years or 8 years, right? That's how, because the military takes you in that way, that we don't, have the flexibility for role change at that point of time. Maybe internally it might have been done. But then when that happens, so you're always, had that, you're on that edgy feeling as to how you're going to face that interview. But what the salary negotiations is something that will come later on. But what you need to, build upon is how you're actually going to face that interview, and what is the confidence level you're going to attempt with it with. So that's more important, because the salary negotiation is something that will happen with the fly, because once you get into the groove, generally the negotiations you don't have the flexibility of negotiation. But then yes, it depends on your experiences. If you have a niche skill, or if you're coming from a background which is in demand for the market, your leverage point is higher in the salary negotiation. And obviously, if you're someone with the generalized experience, then you will lose that advantage. So it is a mix of both the confidence level, and at the same time, your skill and how you face the interview.
Okay, sir. So please tell us about your role as a program manager in Tata Advanced Systems.
Okay. So I joined Tata Aerospace and Defense to be, which it is named as. In Feb of this year. So that was probably about 1 month after I left the Air Force. And currently in my role, I'm heading two programs, predominantly for the Indian defense customers, being the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Coast Guard, and a few of our foreign clients. And majoritarily, the role involves design, development, integration, manufacturing, testing, and delivery of various new product services to hit the market. So we basically, I'm currently in the weapons and sensors division, while we have multiple portfolios, and we basically build weapon systems to help the country's security work on a higher escalated level of efficiency. So that's majorly my role. And on a daily basis, I ensure various project status meetings. I take care of data points, do some data analysis. I'm in charge of procurement, negotiations with suppliers. Also have a team wherein I also function as a scrum master who basically conducts various types of stand-up meetings, story points. And finally, at the end of the day, it's all about putting the niche together so that your end product is, achieved on time. So that's more of a role that I'm currently in. I would say, to sum it up, 70% of management and 20% of technicality and 10% of human resource.
Perfect, sir. So apart from this PMP certification, sir, do you think MBA graduation is important for the officers in the transitioning phase? And if so, what is the best option amongst distance education or the executive or the regular MBA? Which one would you like to suggest, sir?
See, the MBA option is definitely something I also considered during my transition, but then it is again specific to the profile that each of the individuals is looking at. So for example, if you look at my profile, I did my BE from before the Air Force, and then I did my MTech during the Air Force, and then with a broad understanding of or a 6-month course from the DGR, which gives you a brief understanding of business management. I was confident enough to take on, the nitty-gritties of how business management works in the corporate world, because I had that confidence, and it gives you a good understanding. It gives you a baseline of what you need to do, backed by your armed force experience, because we deal with finances, we deal with human resource, we deal with mission planning, we deal with operations, we deal with maintenance. So that experience will speak true, and all you need, what IIM or any of the 6-month executive course is doing, is just polishing it and mapping it to the corporate levels of experience required. But then I also had officers and colleagues who've taken up real-time MBAs, India and abroad, and they've gone into a different domain as well. So they've taken with the armed force experience, they've obviously their levels of how they appreciate a business case is going to be higher, because they spend approximately 2 years in an MBA, 1 year in an MBA in an abroad university. So again, it's how you are going to invest your time. So if you're short of time, I would say that going for a 6 months executive course would be good enough. But then if you feel that you need to get into a more C-level role, then the chances will be higher if you take up for a dedicated executive MBA in any of your top tier institutions.
Great, sir. Sir, tell us about some key lessons of your Air Force experience, which were helpful in your corporate job.
Okay, the first lesson I would say at least was, how we interact with people. Because in the corporate, there's a very formal way of or I would say there's a jovial way of how we set work and lifestyle. But unfortunately, it's not like that in the armed forces. So we're more structured, and we believe in the verticals that we communicate with. So that's how it is. But then when you integrate that into the corporate world, that's something they appreciate, because there's some organization there, there's discipline, and there's a level of comfort that people, you stand out of the crowd. So that is a great lesson, because anything that you interact, anything that you put forward as a draft is always structured in a manner that needs to be befitting to the business objective, and that's already there, which generally is not there, or at least in the initial days of any career, it is not really understood in the corporates. But then when military personnel bring that to the corporate without any kind of additional corporate training, so that is something that has always helped me out. And apart from that, probably use of documentation, how we carry out documentation in the armed force, it's something integrated to the T, right? So that is also something that helped me, because generally we tend to fail on documentation here, or we tend to put it on the backside. But then when you see someone documenting it and ensuring the routes are tied up, then that's something also that they appreciate.
All right, sir. Was it difficult for you to adjust in the civil life, sir, after the transitioning?
Initially, yes, because the first thing is, obviously you're not going to be given a fancy cabin unless you've been picked up for that specific role. Probably officers with 20 years of experience might get into that, but at least for 10 years of service, someone like me, you're going to go into a role where you're going to be an individual contributor, and you cannot expect someone the perks of how we are being treated in the armed force to be available there. But then yes, that's a challenge, and there are either sides of the coin. So in one way, you're learning some great technology, you're mingling with people, and the casualness comes in. That atmosphere of being formal is something that you have to get used to. But then after about 2 months into the system, then you gradually transition and you flow with the wind, because that's how, in fact, that is what you learn with the military, right? You move from one unit to other, one operation, different theater. You cannot say that, this is my hometown and this is my location and I have to stick like that. So that is something that is learned with the armed forces, and it is equally applicable here.
Okay, sir. And are there any on-site opportunities for this role of program manager, sir?
When you say on-site, are you talking about going abroad? Or,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Abroad.
See, the on-site opportunity is integral to the job that you're going taking. So, for example, definitely when you're working on a project, there'll be multiple stakeholders and multiple channel partners whom you'll be working with. And if necessary, if the job or if the program is insistent, or if the requirement of that particular process needs an on-site inspection or a first article inspection or a factory acceptance test, then obviously that's you will definitely have the opportunity to travel and be and mingle with cross-functional and geographically distributed teams. But then that's again specific to the role that you're taking. So at least in my role, definitely yes, because I deal with international clients as part of my project's process. So the chances are high to visit offshore locations, and at least in aviation, yes, and even in renewable energies, majority of the productions do offer on-site opportunities, not on a permanent basis, but definitely you might have to visit there as part of a business trip, and then probably learn, develop. But initially, I'm not sure if that is something that will be handed over in a plate. So it probably will take some time. It will need some amount of experience to be hanging behind your back after the military.
Okay, sir. Sir, generally we have seen in the corporate culture that people do shift from one company to another for a hike of their salary. So what is your opinion regarding this, sir?
See, that is when you're shifting jobs, that's obviously a step forward about how you progress. So that is a part of the channel, and that's part of the career progression that you follow, which it is learned late upon. So, in my opinion, as long as you've gained a good amount of experiences, and if you at any point of time feel saturated in your level, and if you see a no go ahead in the role that you're in, or if you are not, a befitting fit into the current role, then that obviously will initiate a change in your lifestyle, a change in your progression. So that is one of the major reasons. But then yes, thanks to the market nowadays, there is multiple opportunities for young leaders to get the best deals possible. But in my opinion, I would probably after 10 years of service, I would probably stick on to the role, because the aim at this point of time is to get into the groove of how corporate level works and not the financial part of it, because more or less the finance is generally taken care of. So what you need to concentrate at least for a year immediately after you finish your Air Force would be to stick on to a standard or a role that is where you are far-sighted towards, and then probably then on build your experience and see how you can take it forward.
Great. Sir, what is that most thing you miss from your uniform life in the corporate world?
Oh, if so if I have to miss, at least in my opinion, is the great cleanliness of infrastructure availability and the social life that we are used to in the armed forces. Because I remember at least not a day I would miss a game of squash or a badminton or golf after working with after my engineering duty at the Air Force Station. But then over here, it's scattered out. So once you finish your job, then generally majority of the corporates don't offer that facility, or they give it as a additional package, and you might not be meeting those people whom you work with on that same basis. So definitely that social connect is something that I would I miss. And apart from that, the the entire structure or the organization chain that we follow and how we connect and communicate with people, it's not sacrosanct in the corporate world. You can always call up your CEO for any reason, and you can always put forth your point, which I'm not sure it will be uh, convincing if you're doing it in the armed force.
So how do you keep your sports enthusiasm alive in the corporate job, sir?
So again, yes, I'm a thorough sport, so I take my responsibilities and hobbies seriously. So I went on to, I'm also a certified international cricket. I'm a certified coach from the International Cricket Council Dubai. So I engage with athletes of the age group 8 to 14 over the weekends, and I coach at a cricket academy that keeps me off, off work and on to my hobbies. Apart from that, I've joined multiple clubs, which gives me the opportunities, civil clubs. And thankfully, at least in Bangalore, we have military clubs such as RSI, which, offers memberships wherein you can go and meet various veterans and engage with them in various sports activities and keep your physical and mental strength high.
All right, sir. Sir, any last words for the officers and the transitioning?
I would like to only, speak about one aspect, at least what I went through, the moment you take the step towards transition, generally no one looks back, but there were many officers who, were still, worried about what life would be and how the job flow will happen, because there is some amount of financial constraint at that. I'm talking about the 10-year service, because at a 20-year level, you're backed by pension, that's fine. But at a 10-year level, you are bound to get a job, because majorly or high amount of officers or military personnel would be willing to work ahead. So when there's that element of stress, there's always that probability of fear. So, and which might reduce your ability to speak in an interview or put forth the best foot forward in terms of a job application. So what I would say is keep calm and believe that you were one among the number of candidates who applied for the armed forces, and it was way higher in probability than the ones who appear for a job role in the corporate. And you were successful there, and you've been handled great missions, you've been part of it, and you need to keep yourself calm and stress on your high notes, and you will get there.
Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir. It was a great insight knowing your experience in program manager as well as the PMP certification. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And I would also thank Shaurya for initiating and making available such kind of guidances to transitioning officers, because at least for me it was a clean slate wherein we had to dig the spade right out. We had no clue about what actually happens, and even speaking to or any kind of a motivation, or even a small talk with someone who's traveled the journey would have definitely helped me prepare way ahead. It would have definitely given me an edge. So with this initiative being undertaken, I am sure that it'll make a long gain to majority of my colleagues or my comrades would be joining me soon somewhere.
Absolutely, sir. We are aiming on to that only, so that the armed forces fraternity is very helpful, and we hold on to each other whenever there is a challenge time. Thank you for the time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.